daughter is coming in for volleyball. She's sick. So right now, it's still considering me out. I'll let you know.
That's fine. Rod is willing to do it. He's excited.
Totally forgot.
Yeah, but I like doing it too. So.
You can arm wrestle before.
Well, I think it's because we just want a house.
So you're going to move it.
Oh.
I don't care if I get paid. If he can get paid, we'll go to the coordinator this week. Because we're going to need that in the playoffs. Because fast offenses now, there's no time for the guy in the box. Also, run over and clip because they get a first down. Up there, the lineman and pro, ready to go. And so,
Whatever.
things down, which is good.
It's gorgeous, but
But
it needs a ton of, these are ours.
the
Steve
playoffs,
won't go for
the
it.
playoffs, chassis
It
pays for it, so it doesn't matter.
So much more than.
It's all chassis money in the playoffs.
Do you know what it needs? Popcorn's free.
Ready?
Yeah,
That's all right.
but let's do this.
Well, did everybody have a nice weekend? Any stories to tell? Not a nice weekend?
No, that's okay.
All right. So let's talk about myth and heroes journeys. I know that in language arts, we teach that all the time. Like we're constantly teaching the myth and the hero's journey. But I really started to think when she started talking about the archetypes and the archetypal features, and when she talked that physical battles give way to inner battles and turmoil inside, that really made me start thinking, because I'm not, some of the stories, like I'll ask the questions, was that the battle literal or figurative? Like, did that really happen? And I wonder how many of you, when you teach the hero's journey, do you really make that comparison to the physical battles that the hero faces to their internal turmoil? And I suppose that's specific to the English teachers, unless you teach it in history or science or math.
What's your question again? Yeah, I was like, I don't know that.
So when I was thinking about the archetypal features of the story, and it was talking about the physical battles that the hero needs to face, and how she said that usually those physical battles give way to like internal battles and internal turmoil. And how often do you make that distinction that what could this physical battle or physical, whatever, indicate in their personal life? Do you do that?
Well, I mean, I think kind of indirectly, like, because I'm always having like them connect some aspect of like their world around them to what could be relayed within the text, to try to bring that relevance. But I mean, all it's doing is just linking aspects of humanity that tie to like common experiences, So, I mean, I wouldn't say I come out and go, I don't know.
So let's take the Odyssey, for example, right? Because we've all taught that at least. And like, I'm not really sure that I think of the moment when he faces Scylla and Charybdis as an internal problem.
Then no, in that case, probably not.
Well, I think, like, I don't know if this is what this has to really do with hero's journey, but we were talking, like, because I'm teaching the short story unit where we teach conflict and we teach all those little elements right now. We were talking about how, like, there are so many, like, secondary conflicts that occur within a journey, and that there's, like, a primary conflict, and sometimes it's external, and sometimes it's internal, and sometimes they're operating all, like, at the same time. So I think in some ways I didn't directly teach that, but, like, what you're saying, I think there are examples where the primary conflict is not internal at all in a story. Like, think about like the movie Speed. Like, nothing about that movie is an internal conflict, right? Well,
Her love for Keanu Reeves.
that is sort of secondary to the primary conflict of, hey, let's not die. And kill everyone. I don't know, I just think, like, doesn't have to have an internal conflict to make it a good story, right?
Well, I don't know. I
Isn't
mean,
that
if you
kind of
think
what
of
she was
like,
implying though, that there has to be a
like
second-
Star Wars, there's an internal conflict for Luke Skywalker.
But it's also about that separation piece, that you're thrown into a world that you're not used to in order to find like a new understanding. And like every story almost that we've ever been taught, like brings us back to just that. Like, and I think that's the main like primary indicator is having them connect on that level, is that we see these heroes' journey for a reason. And she even said it, and I've watched, I actually have a documentary called Finding Joe, but it's about, becoming the hero of your own journey and recognizing that, your adversities and the things that you persevere through in life and the stuff that comes to you that you didn't want, the stuff that, you work toward that becomes hard, you're thrust into that new world where you're having to deal with those battles. And what comes out of that is like, could be deeper reflection. It could be a greater understanding of something. It could be more knowledge. It could be, a greater sense of oneself. But I think those are the like key elements. Like, but when we're talking about the Odyssey and those aspects, I wouldn't say that I've ever like talked about that before.
Yeah, no, neither have I.
Yeah.
But I'm just starting to teach the Epic of Gilgamesh to my students and my seniors in World Lit. And Gilgamesh has some questionable practices as king of Uruk. But I wonder as I read it in preparation, if I keep that in the back of my head, is this really more so than just the battles that he has to have? Like, what is it that is going on there?
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was interesting. When you guys were watching that and she asked you to kind of write things down as it was happening, did you come to any conclusions about your own hero's journey? Like a moment that you've been thrusted into a situation that you either didn't choose or didn't see coming?
I was really struggling the whole time to actually come up with.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to figure out, like, what you were just saying, like, there's been times in my life where, yes, things that I have chosen have become difficult, but I still was like, I can't really say that, I can't come up with a hero's journey, because, like, going off to Michigan for college was, yes, I was put in a new situation, but it was like by my choice. So I was more excited, or I was more, it was hard for me to come up with a situation where it was like, truly I'm in this, well, like really have been put in this situation and I'm not prepared for it. And like, I really struggled to come up with it. Because every other time I just felt like, and I guess you just said it, where something I chose could become hard. And then that, I could relate it to that maybe. Yeah. But I had a hard time going.
You'll understand a lot better when your kids turn into teenagers.
Yeah.
Because you are the hero of this journey, raising children,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a lot of hard decisions you have to make.
Yeah, and we're just getting there.
Yeah, and then of course you have a lot of little fires to put out on the road, and the story becomes much more complex as they get older. It stays complex as they continue to get older. When they're adults, you're still, you are their hero, hopefully you'll stay that way, but there are decisions you have to make. So I'd say parenting definitely relates to what she's, and grandparenting. That's easy, you just give them back. You're ticket.
I would say there's a hero's journey. Dr. Harvey's little words here in the little manuscript, the script for the class. And it says, think about applying your hero's journey to pivotal moments in your life in which you had a choice to either stay where you were or go into the unknown. And it also says this, consider events that transform you in some way, even though they may not seem significant to others. But I would say maybe to us, is that the humility of the hero, right? And I'm saying it doesn't seem like a big deal to you, but yet, think about all the people that were pulling for you.
Right.
And,
Well, you can look at it reflectively, like,
yeah.
all these things I did gain things, a lot of things, like they've shaped who I am, and I've learned a lot of things. I was just struggling to go like,
Yeah.
but I still put myself, for the most part, I haven't just been slammed with this horribly adverse thing in my life, knock on wood,
But you were, we all were, December
Well,
13th.
That's
Yeah,
what I
that's
kept
true, I
thinking
guess.
back to.
Yeah, that was the first thing I thought.
Yeah, me too.
Well, and you better be the hero in your own journey. You want to be humble about it, but at think when they said the hero's journey, so many times, when you're reading about, something that reflects on hero, we were talking earlier, there is a really good story with math, and it pertains to science about a hero's journey. And that's the scientists of World War II trying to beat the Germans to the atom bomb. We had to do it, didn't want to do it, we had to do it, we had to beat them. In fact, some of the people helping us were German, Oppenheimer, and I think Einstein, didn't he have some German connection? And then we had to decide, as we're building this bomb, we knew we were going to have to drop it on people and kill thousands of people, but how many people did we save? And that was the only thing that kept those guys going. If you ever read that, guys were so torn. Of course, they tore their families up because it was a race. They're working 18, 19 hours.
You ever watched the show, Manhattan?
The one that was on the History Channel or
It's on TV.
Hallmark or one of them.
Really
Yeah.
good, actually.
Yeah. But I've read about the Manhattan Project. Yeah, and I've seen a couple of episodes. Binge watch and catch up to that. But how torn these guys were and something that was sort of their Odyssey.
Or that movie about the guy who had to break the code.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, Imitation Game.
Yeah, like that was, he's a hero, because he broke it.
Then they couldn't use it.
I know. I know.
But I think, a big aspect of this is going back to, the idea of separation, initiation, return. And like so much of what we do follows those like key elements. And every year that I've taught American Lit, second semester before we read Gatsby, I always, you're going to hear it in your public speaking class, probably by Emmy, since she's going to talk about it. But I tell this story about the student that I had in my third or fourth year teaching. I will give you the very, very brief, it takes the whole class period to tell this story. But I had a student basically destroy my universe, told me that I wasn't basically worth anything because of what I drove, where I lived, that I didn't have a lot of money, that my husband was a blue collar guy, that what I did didn't really matter, and me very smugly, very, and being kind of thrust into that world from what I had grown up in, what I had known. Definitely when you think about initiation, it caused me to question things. It caused me to think about, my riches in life. And I'm not talking about monetarily, but what I truly value and what my purpose was. And it's cool because I get to return to this story every year. And I'm constantly reminded of what truly is important, and what I walked away with somebody telling me this is what it is supposed to be and what it should be, and this is where you are. And something that simple taught me so much about myself, and what I love and what I really am on this earth to do. And but it follows that same pattern, and the same when you said on December 13th, I started thinking about the world that we were thrust into, what we don't necessarily expect to walk through the doors and happened on that day, and the situations we were put in to take care of kids, take care of each other, ourselves, and the after, the real hard part was the after effects of it. Having to sit down with a therapist and tell your story and go through some really hard things that were brought out that I know I needed to get out. But now that I've done it after 2 years, I'm oh my God, it's amazing what clarity comes to mind. So I think I love the idea of that separation, initiation, return, because it's so true on so many levels. But it doesn't have to be like you said, this big thing. It can be so many small incidences and stuff that helps us to grow, because each of us is, it's cliche, but we are heroes in our own way. We're doing things to try to impact others and make a difference in other people's lives.
What came to mind for me was when I was diagnosed with MS and how it radically changed myself temporarily. I was thrust into this chaotic, oh my gosh, everything is going to change. And I literally sat and wrote answers to the questions about, like, when were you called on your journey? Well, it was that day I went into the ER. Katie Kurgan, like, trailed me in her car because I was saying that my feet were numb, and she's like, are you sure you should drive? Like, I remember very specific aspects of it. And then, like, who was your helper along the way? Like, and I kind of parallel, because I show this stupid thing to my seniors, and it's Shrek, A Journey's Tale. So you can, and I'm like, okay, who was my donkey? Who was the one that kind of got me through this? And it was an amazing doctor. His name was Dr. Ravolochin, and he wasn't the ER doc. The ER doc was an idiot. But this was the doctor that came in the next day and was telling me, you know, everything's going to be okay. This is not going to change your life. And then the initiation, I think, was when I got my first box of medication, my injections, and I was kind of like, oh my gosh, you know, like this is for real. And there were so many things that I went through with that. And I remember after I had gone to the hospital when I was diagnosed, and the next week I came back to school, but I had the flu. And I remember sitting in between Katie and Ann saying, if this is MS, I can't live like this. Like, I can't, like, it was that moment of despair in the hero's journey where you question whether or not you can go on. And like, but then I've come out on the other side, you know, like I've returned to normalcy, as normal as it can be, you know, after I've been regulated on my medication and I don't have to take shots anymore. And I feel as normal as I did before. Like, I don't feel like I have that illness, even though it's there. It's not, I mean, it's part of my reality and it's changed me, but it didn't really. And I've been able to come back to where I was before I was diagnosed. So I was very much, when she was talking about this, I was like, oh, that's totally my journey. Like, if I had to pinpoint one hero's journey, because I can't really, I mean, I agree, having kids is a trip. Like, there's so much going on with children, and, you know, the losing my brother-in-law in a car accident, you know, there's just been things that have been tragic in my life, but I wouldn't necessarily call them a journey, or maybe they are just part of the journey. I don't know. It's kind of hard to pinpoint, I think.
That's more, like, I was trying to think of like the one big, and that's what I was more struggling to like come up with. But I think, and I totally agree with you that all these little things are models of that, but.
I don't know. I thought it was interesting. What did you think of the second video when she started talking about how to deliver?
So she talked about like tensive conflict or whatever.
Right.
I can't remember which one.
Tensive conflict and meaning.
That was kind of interesting. I just like kind of always think about how to apply this kind of stuff like storytelling to writing. And so I jotted kind of this idea down of like, even like, I thought, to me, like the hero's journey, like the rites of passage that she was talking about, and like that concept, and then all of these ideas of like tensive conflict, I was like, oh, well, these are just really good like memoir writing strategies. Like, and I know that doesn't apply to everyone in the room, but that was kind of all I kept thinking about, like how to make this really applicable to me and to my classroom. And I started thinking about, okay, well, when we write memoir in the spring with my juniors, like these are some things that I can talk about. These are like names that I can use for how to get kids to like tell their story. And if you think about like college essays, things that could be used to help kids write college essays. So that's kind of where I went with it. I didn't go as much toward like me and how, you know, what are my tensive conflicts and stuff. I just started thinking how I could use it.
I thought it was interesting that it actually made me think of history, about conflict driving the story. And I wonder if in your curriculum, if you use those conflicts in history to drive home points by telling stories.
Oh yeah, I think so. Like, well, in kind of the push-pull you get in history, like as a nation, you have this set of values, but then when you look at history, do those values really play out? And So you kind of look at it that way. Like today we talked about St. Augustine's justification for war. And it's kind of interesting to apply that to everything. And does that match our values? And while we're doing it, are we doing the right thing? So
I don't know that story.
he came up with a list of things like this is what makes a just war. So he's got a list of 5 things that if it fits that criteria.
And all 5 have to fit.
Mhm.
And how often do all 5 fit?
Rarely. But it's cool because then you can look at it in, it's not just like a check 5 things. I mean, it's every different conflict has a different way to look at it too. I mean, because my justification could be somewhat different from yours. And it says you have to balance the pros and the cons, the good and the bad. Well, we don't always see the bad or war until afterwards.
Right.
Or if we get into it, we don't know that we're going to drop an atomic bomb in World War II.
I thought it was interesting how she had that visual of the talking, writing, imaging,
Yep.
playing, rehearsing. And I thought, kind of how I teach. Like, have you ever thought about that? Like, I hand them something I've written out. I talk about it. I try to create an image. Sometimes we play, often more so in public speaking than any other class. And I don't rehearse anymore, but I remember as a new teacher, I would practice things before I would go in to deliver them. Like, do you remember that? I mean, it's really long for all of us, a long time ago. I mean, what, 6 years? 6 years? I mean, that's a pretty long time. And I wonder if I need to maybe go back to that idea of, instead of just going into the classroom and remembering what I've done in the past, to really focus on my delivery, as opposed to, oh, right, this is another discussion about Epic of Gilgamesh, which I've taught 15 times, and I don't need to really, I don't know.
It depends on the story for me. Sometimes if I rehearse it, I don't feel like it's a genuine story. So if I just kind of go in there and do it, yeah. So if it's something really scripted, it's just not natural for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking about that, and I was like, I don't really rehearse.
But did you as a new teacher? Or did you lay out, like, because
Maybe I just had my plans a lot more detailed.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And maybe that is
You
rehearsal.
should, my first years, and I still have just kept, like, I was writing with pencil, and I have a whole, I don't have like the planner book, I have literally a page for every day. And my first few lessons are like full front and back side of, because I thought that if I had written it in my head, then it was like I had taught it once already, so it was like rehearsing, but by writing it out. And obviously I don't follow that anymore, but I still have just kept some of those because I'm like, oh my gosh, that was, but I agree with you, if it's too much, then you sound rehearsed. But.
That's why when somebody else gives me a lesson plan, like it doesn't, I have to tweak it to my own. I can't just take their lesson plan because it's just not me.
But how many do you have? Like I have 4 biologies in a row. And so my third bio is always my best because
Yeah.
first hour is the guinea pigs, second hour is like you're just revving up. Third hour is like, all right, I've problem solved. This is my best.
Fourth hour, like,
today. Fourth hour, like,
this?
I don't even
That's what I, yeah.
Yeah.
Did I say that already?
Yeah. So
Gosh. So do you have one prep?
for Monday, Wednesday, Friday, then I have
Well,
physiology.
especially if you do something
Physiology.
spontaneous.
Yeah.
You're like, did I tell you guys the story?
Yes,
but
I'll
tell us
always
again.
have a kid that's like, you already told us that.
Or even like on back to school night, you always have sort of the same
Spiel.
general spiel, and then I had a mom whose older daughter was in my phys class, and then younger daughter was in bio, so she literally just walked with me up the stairs to listen to me again. And I'm like, you're gonna hear some of the same things, even for a different class, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. I wonder if, I haven't mentored a new teacher in a long, long time. I just don't think I'm very good at it. But I wonder if mentors teach new teachers by telling them to write well, remember we always heard plan more than you can probably finish in an hour. You know, like when I have a substitute teacher, I plan way more than I know they can get done in that hour. I wonder if that's how teacher mentoring goes now, or if it's a little less rigid. What do you know?
It's probably less rigid.
It's more, I mentored Nick last year, which wasn't very good because we didn't teach any of the same classes.
Sweet.
Right, so it worked out really well.
That's awesome.
But we still could talk about just like flow, and so it's not, yeah, but you know, do you have your stuff up on the screen, and do you have your, like that kind, it's more the flow that he needs to check, make sure that he has those major like checkpoints, but not, do you have every single thing written out and over planned?
And I think storytelling is like anything, it's a skill. So you have to practice it. Like the first time I tell a story, it's not accurate. But then, you know, if you have full class, you're right. Like by the time you're like, I got this, you know what your audience likes, you know what kind of grabs their attention. I think it's just a skill, just kind of like teaching, you know. When I first taught, my transitions were horrible. Now they're okay. But, you know, it's just something over time you practice.
I thought it was.
I don't think I practiced. Maybe I did. Like if there's a really important story that I have to like nail everything. But
I wouldn't say like stand in front of a mirror and practice
love
your
doing that.
delivery, but like think like, for example, Greg and I have done the link crew assembly, a homecoming assembly, the link crew assembly so many times, and even now, like in the shower the morning of orientation, I go through the whole spiel in my head so that I don't forget it, you know?
No, that makes sense. I guess, yeah.
You know, because I know that, and sometimes like I rest on my laurels because I'm like, I got this. There's no, and then that morning I'm freaking out looking for my cards going, oh my gosh, I don't know what's happening, you know? I don't know.
Yeah, but I practice that the night before, like I look at the video and then I rehearse for the dog, I rehearse, I think I did rehearse in the mirror one time just to see what.
How did it look?
Not good. I was like, what am I doing? But then I go to the gym like before while all the kids in the classroom, like I think you've seen me down there, I think like standing there probably, all the gym teachers are like, what is he doing? But then I have to release and let myself flow a little bit because I feel like if I focus too much on all those little points, then I don't get it, or it's not as natural as it could be. Because I want it to be, or how many times have we seen speeches where you wish the person would have memorized it too? You know, I'm not talking necessarily here, it could be anywhere, where where a memorized speech would have been like amazing and had much more power, or you know, the points of it, versus, and I think about when I don't do that and I lose the emphasis or the meaning.
Do you use storytelling in your coaching?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Particularly,
like how?
well, particularly with maybe, like last year, we had a very young team, so between Brad and Bruce and myself, all of our experiences, we would share, you know, other groups that faced adversity, because these guys, you know, most of them come from homes where they don't face a lot of adversity. In Arapahoe hadn't lost in basketball. This is like 2003, and we were having some problems, so we would share moments that we had, you know, adversity, and sometimes you give stories of maybe an athlete that they can relate to, or a team or a coach or whatever. And one of the things that we tried to put on those kids, with Brad being the head coach, wanted the team to take on his personality. If you've ever seen Brad play with the balls on the floor, he's going to get it, that kind of stuff. And that's the kind of thing we try to get them to understand. So our hero's journey was your brother. So yeah, and you know, and of course with coaches, you know, you get a group of coaches together, and there's always a fun, I think, group of stories of things that have happened over the years, and sometimes you share those with the kids. So that it's like when somebody does something stupid, oh no, we got somebody dumber than you. refer back to some guy or some coach, one of the funny stories that I can relate to. You have to know this guy. He was the athletic director in England for about 20 years, but he was a coach for forever. Natalie knows him. She probably knows his story. Don Tomasini, he was one of these guys that just super strong and very blunt and to the point. We had this kid who was like 4th down and 30 in the game. We played Regis. And we had a special call on special teams, punt, that the punter, because this kid was a really good athlete, if they weren't rushing real hard, he could take off running for the first down. Well, it was 4th and 30, like on our 15-yard line, so he's standing right on the end zone. He takes off running with the ball, and he sees these guys coming. So he decides at the last second to punt it, and he gets mauled, and he breaks his leg. He's landing writhing in pain. I was the special teams coach, and I was just like, walking out there, and Don just walks out there, and the kid's screaming, and Don says, you've done your job and punted the ball like you're supposed to. You would have broken your leg. They just turned and walked on. And I'm sitting there trying to comfort this kid. I was like, it was so, typical of this guy. So whenever he was around, and people knew him, that made the story funnier. But you relate that to kids, about doing your job and break your leg. If you try to go outside the team's plan.
Well, we had for the athletic meeting, they had, what's his name, Dr. Rick. Broncos guy.
Oh, yeah, Rick Perea.
Yeah, well, you were called up front, and I know there were remarks like, all the stories you were going to tell, you did a great job. But the thing was, like, you could have held court for as long as you wanted to. Like, he was called up front to do this exercise in front of all these coaches, which could be intimidating. But the neat thing was, I think some coaches, they were trying to jam you, but what I recall is that you tell the story. It was evident that you do that, and it's part of your persona.
I think their thing was that, here comes Patty, and I'm going to shut up.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
That was kind of weird.
That was kind of
But I think, yeah.
So you're saying that we lose a lot of time in my class, yes? It's math, we have to.
I don't know though if they lose time when you tell stories. I think sometimes it's just a way to communicate and relate to your students, and to gain their, not necessarily your respect, but to be like, I don't know, human and not just the teacher that knows everything and telling me everything, And I wonder how kids feel when their teachers don't share stories.
That was huge with Ron. That was one of the first things he would always say, relationship, rigor, relevance.
Right.
He used to say relationship first.
Yeah.
And when they see a side, I think you develop a relationship. And I can remember teachers that were just all content, And there was worse in college than high school. It seemed to me the high school teachers I had were much more human and much more
High school?
relationship, much more relationship developing than many college professors that, especially, there's a class of 400 and that's a lecture. There's not going to be any relationship building, but that's why it's not a real wise move in high school. You don't see those some schools still do it.
It's a time in life though too, all the things teach, the intentional aspects of all the stories that we tell have a purpose. We've calculated that, they have some relevance for us, or we believe that they do for the kids. And I think like Audrey, you mentioned that I'm doing the short story stuff, I thought a lot about, like she's going to rethink, like how do I, a few times, like how do I look at this, or what do I do differently about me, or one of the things that were there, which is kind of interesting. It's amazing how much depth is here too. It's like I think when you initially see the class or something, you might not think it has, by title or what she breaks down as much stuff as it does. But I think she does a good job.
The professor?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been impressed with what she's delivered, and she certainly made me think about when she was talking about keeping tensive feeling when you tell a story, like keep people in order to keep them curious, you need to keep that kind of tensive and what's next, oh my gosh, and oh my goodness, what's gonna happen next. I don't know if like when I model speeches for public speaking, I'm not really sure. You know how she gave the example of, well, this is how you would tell the story if you already knew the ending. She was talking about the minor. And then, and so it made me really think about, how do I present the speeches when I model them for the kids? How do I have that tensive conflict to keep them interested in what I'm talking about? Because we always say start with an attention getter, right? Draw them in, grab their attention. I suppose in her suggestion, she's saying maintain that attention getter throughout.
I want to think if you've been pretty good with your stories before, you're probably going to have their attention right away. But if it's not a good story, or it's not relevant, or you don't do a good job of telling the story, then you might end up back at square one for a little while. But if you've already done a pretty good job with some other stories, whatever the story fits in that day, you're going to have their attention right away. So I think for when you have the same audience over and over again, be like a comedian. If you're going to go watch Adam Sandler, you're going to expect a certain type of joke, and if he comes out and tries something new, it may or may not work. And you hear about comedians try that out. A really good example is the redheaded comic.
Carrot Top?
No, not him. No. This one's actually funny. It's got like 5 kids. And
Louis C.K.?
no,
Jim Gaffigan.
Gaffigan, one of his whole spiels is, people say, oh, I just love it when you do your bits about high pumpkins and these other things. But he goes, hey, I have other jokes other than about food, but he always comes back to food. It's pretty funny.
He's a storyteller.
Yeah, he is.
Jim Gaffigan.
He tells stories for his stories about his children, his wife, they're just hilarious. He's always the butt of his own jokes, but his stuff with the kids are pretty funny. And so, yeah, I think comedians make great storytellers.
Oh, yeah.
They make a living doing that. But yeah, it's for us as teachers, we're telling the same audience our stories every day. Depending on what, depending on class. And like Carol's on about, by the 4th time you're telling a story the same day, the story either gets worse or better. It's probably not going to be the same. Usually it gets better because maybe you think something spontaneous comes to you and you add it, or you embellish. Not that any of us here would embellish your stories, but
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I've been waiting for the video on embellishment, but I haven't seen that yet.
Lie. Just lie.
Stretch.
I just lost my train of thought.
You think about the miners and when I think about that more for the different stories, like maybe think about your Manhattan Project, or building the weaponry to save the good, the bad, the conflict of choices, but the miners, the light, the dark.
Sacrificing the few to save the
Yeah.
many. What a conflict.
But I know I should have thought about that one more. I just didn't think about it with the miners in terms of that issue. I think that's smart. Makes sense.
Well, and what's interesting is when she says, when I talk to the miners, they just want to get back. They just want to get back to the mine. They love it down there. And it made me think when she said
I have a
that.
hard time understanding that.
I know. Well, as we being non-miners,
But people don't understand how can you possibly do that?
Well, the thing on that, December 13th, how could we possibly come back in the building?
all I wanted to do was get back in this building after that shooting. I just wanted to be in this room with my students.
Well, you knew they were dependent on you to be here. It would have been devastating if 20 or 30 people chose not to come back.
Oh, yeah.
Semester, and that would have devastated school, and the kids would have been transferring out of here like crazy.
Well, remember how we had breakfast that Monday and then Tuesday we had nothing? And then Wednesday we could come back after the shooting. And Tuesday I was like, I need something to do. And actually Maria came over and we baked Christmas cookies because I needed something to do. I needed to be around people. I didn't want to sit at home. And I kept my kids home that day also, that Tuesday, because I needed something to do. I didn't want to just sit and think about it. I wanted to be here. And I wonder, like, I thought about that when she said the miners just, if they had a chance, they would just want to jump right back in to being in that mine. And I know, I've talked to lots of people who the last place they wanted to be was back at Arapahoe after that shooting. I don't think many people felt the way I did. Almost immediately, like Saturday morning.
Well, it's amazing what people's reactions can do for others. But use a different tragic situation. Early in my teaching career, we lost a basketball player. He was, I was teaching out in Bennett, which is just east of Aurora, and Sean Ham drove from Bennett to Wiggins to go watch his girlfriend play basketball. I think it was December, the light was weird. Anyway, he got hit by a train and got killed. 16 years old, he was 6'8", and he had Division I schools right up to him. He was a tremendous basketball player. We won two state championships with him on that team. And we had the funeral at the school gym because that's what you do in small towns, and the cemetery there. We were all just didn't know what to do. And, I got to do something. This kid was so special. Well, they're all special, but this kid was special. My wife said, "Well, what something he loved?" He said he loved the Celtics. He loved Larry Bird. This was back when Larry Bird was a big deal. This was in '85. So I went to Gar Brothers, which is now Sports Authority, got a Celtics jacket and gave it to his mom, and she buried that with him. And at least 4 or 5 times over the years, she said, that's, she remembered it was that gesture, and it really, I don't know what made me think of it, but it's just one of those things, if some way to ease that pain, their pain was tremendous, And he had a sister that went on to play basketball at CSU, and it was pretty difficult for her to even get back on the basketball court that year. But
I'm sure.
Those are those kinds of situations. Just you remember if somebody does something to ease your pain, and it's sometimes we all never know what to say or do, but doing something usually would be appreciated and or remembered.
It's for the presence, validation, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Which is really,
And I called her before I did that. I was like, going to show up with it just in case that just was. I still know what kind of reaction you're going to get.
Yeah. Anybody else have anything else to talk about? No.
I heard on the news today that